is a housing bill that just passed the U.S. House of Representatives by an overwhelming bipartisan vote, 390 to 9. And if it ultimately becomes law, it could quietly reshape the housing market for years to come. But here's the interesting part. While most people are looking at this bill through a political lens, today I want to talk about it through a housing lens. Because whether you're a buyer, a seller, or someone simply watching home values here in the Valley, this legislation could affect you more than you might think. Let's start with the big picture. For over a decade, the United States has had one major housing problem, and that's that we simply have not built enough homes. Depending on whose data you look at, experts estimate that America is short somewhere between 3 and 5 million homes nationwide. And when supply falls behind demand, prices rise, affordability drops, and eventually first-time homebuyers begin getting pushed out of the market altogether. The housing bill is designed to address that imbalance, not by forcing pricing down, but by attempting to make the housing market more stable and accessible over time. One of the biggest focuses of the legislation is encouraging the construction of new housing, and that can come in several forms. Incentives for builders to construct new homes, encouraging local governments to allow higher density housing, supporting infrastructure needed for new communities, and streamlining the permit process that often delays development. And here's why that matters. Housing prices ultimately are controlled by one very simple economic truth: supply versus demand. When there are too few homes available, prices accelerate quickly. We saw that very clearly during the pandemic housing boom. Increasing supply doesn't typically cause home values to collapse. What it usually does is just slow down unhealthy price spikes and create sustainable long-term appreciation. For buyers, increased housing supply can eventually mean more inventory to choose from, less intense and competitive bidding wars, greater negotiating power, and a more balanced market environment. Now, it's important to understand something very many buyers just simply misunderstand. When policies encourage building, the effects are gradual. Construction takes time, zoning changes take time, infrastructure takes time. So supply improvements are usually felt over several years, not overnight. For sellers, this kind of policy often produces something extremely valuable: market stability. Balanced inventory levels tend to create smoother sales cycles, fewer boom and bust swings, and more predictable appreciation over time. That kind of stability protects homeowner equity and historically produces healthier real estate markets long term. Another major focus of housing legislation like this is expanding access to mortgage financing, and that can include down payment assistance programs, expanded first-time homebuyer opportunities, government-backed loan support, policies that improve liquidity in the mortgage market. Now here's where things get interesting. Financing improvements usually increase buyer demand much faster than supply can increase housing inventory. And when demand rises quickly, it can place upward pressure on prices, at least in the short term. And this is where I think experience in real estate really matters. Policies like this often create two separate market effects. Short term, buyer activity increases, competition probably will intensify, and prices can remain strong or even accelerate. But long term, housing supply improves, price growth becomes more sustainable, and market cycles become less volatile. In my 30 plus years in this business, housing markets perform best when appreciation stays in a sustainable range. Historically, nationwide home values have appreciated around 3.5% annually. Here in California, that number has historically been closer to 7%. Those are healthy numbers. Those are wealth building numbers. And those are stable market numbers. The final major goal behind legislation like this is housing stability. That includes programs designed to reduce foreclosure risk, support homeowner retention, stabilize lending markets, and protect neighborhood values. So why does that matter? Because distressed home sales historically pull down surrounding property values and can trigger sharp market corrections. Stability protects neighborhoods, protects equity, and helps prevent severe housing crashes. The real goal behind legislation like this is addressing a long-term structural housing shortage. When housing supply consistently lags population growth, homeownership declines, affordability suffers, and economic mobility slows. Balanced housing markets support stronger communities, stronger local economies, and stronger long-term wealth building for homeowners. What makes housing policy unique is that when it is designed properly, it benefits both buyers and sellers. Buyers benefit from increased access to homeownership and more stable pricing cycles. Sellers benefit from stronger buyer demand, improved market liquidity, and protection of long-term home equity. And when both sides of the market are healthy, real estate becomes less speculative and more sustainable. Here in the San Fernando Valley and its surrounding communities, we're already seeing signs of what happens when buyer demand begins to strengthen while inventory remains historically low. If policies like this successfully encourage long-term housing supply, they could create a more balanced and predictable market moving forward. The biggest mistake people often make is assuming housing policy creates immediate price changes. In reality, the most important impact is usually long-term market health. And historically stable housing markets produce the strongest and most reliable wealth building for homeowners. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or simply trying to understand where the housing market may be headed, staying informed about policies like this can make a significant difference in your long-term strategy. And if you found this helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's trying to navigate today's housing market. If you're thinking about selling your home, I've created a free resource called Avoiding a Failed Sale: How to Sell Smart and Walk Away Without Regret. You can download your free copy at mrchatsworth.com/ebook. And until next time, I'll see you around the neighborhood.